I was looking at who was going to tell me time. As Jim said, we are going to start with opening statements. There'll be 2 minutes, and we'll start with Mr. Crutchfield.
Good evening. I think most of you have met you, seen you, or had the acquaintance of you at some point in time. I'm Kevin Crutchfield. I've lived in Cabarrus County since 1981. I moved here to work for the IBM Corporation. My family relocated here. I have a wife, 3 sons, 9 grandchildren, and we kind of almost feel part of the public schools with our family. So it's a place we call home. It's a place that's near and dear to us. We live down here on Mount Pleasant Road in Midland, where we actually have a farm with about 50 head of cattle on it. We also own a small business in Concord called Casco Signs, where we employ about 50 people. I have served in the State House for 2 years. I did not get elected in the last election, missed it by about 82 votes, something like that. Part of it was redistricting, part of it was I just had a strong opponent. I'm here to serve you. This is not about me, this is about serving the people of Cabarrus County. I think if you look at my record, clearly that's what I've done in the past, and that's what I'll do in the future. I have lived in this county longer than my opponent's been alive. And for that, I know that I have the experience and the knowledge to go up there and be an effective leader for you. My freshman year has proven that. Thank you very much.
My name is Chris Meesmer, and I have the honor and the privilege of currently serving as your North Carolina State Senate. I was born and raised here in Cabarrus County, graduated from Central Cabarrus High School. I earned a degree in political science from George Washington University. I'm a second-generation business owner here in Cabarrus County. I served on the Cabarrus County Commission Board for 6.5 years. And during my time on that commission board, I was a staunch defender of your tax dollars, protecting your freedoms and your liberties from government control, from government censorship, and making common sense decisions for you, the citizen and taxpayer of this county. I've taken that same approach to Raleigh. Now, I was appointed to this position in April of last year, and I was voted on unanimously by the local Cabarrus County GOP board to fill the vacancy in the North Carolina Senate. Now, because of the timeline of when I was appointed, I was not able to file legislation of my own. However, during my time there, I'm very proud of the legislation that I've been able to work on and that I voted on. I secured funding for a second DMV location in Cabarrus County. I voted on Arena's Law, which ended the cashless bail system for repeat and violent offenders, making our community safer. I voted on the REINS Act, which prohibits unelected bureaucrats from being able to impose new rules and regulations without legislative oversight. I voted on the DAVE Act, which created the division of accountability, value, and efficiency. And that's like a DOGE committee for the state of North Carolina, going after waste, fraud, and abuse. I've enjoyed my time there. I'm here to work for you. I'm here because I love Cabarrus County. I care about you. I care about your family.
Thank you, gentlemen. If you want to grab your paddles, and we'll get off to the races. So as stated, I will read the question twice, and then you give up thumbs up or thumbs down to your yes would be your thumbs up, and no would be your thumbs down, just to clarify. Do you support the Senate Bill 50, the Freedom to Carry Act? Yes or no? Do you support the Senate Bill 50, the Freedom to Carry Act? Do you support tougher restrictions on hemp and vapor products on school grounds? Yes or no? You guys are better. I don't need to read this twice, you think? We can read faster. Favor stronger cooperation with federal immigration enforcement to remove criminals from our state. We've got a poker chip, people.
So in the North Carolina Senate, I voted on a bill to outlaw sanctuary cities in North Carolina. So I've already been working towards this. In addition to that, we have passed legislation to require sheriff's departments to work with ICE agents in turning over individuals, illegal immigrants, for deportation. So that way ICE is not having to be out on the street in dangerous situations trying to wrangle up, illegal immigrants. So this way it protects it protects the community, it protects law enforcement to be able to detain these individuals and follow deportation.
Amen.
Should biological males be granted access to school locker rooms or bathrooms? Do you agree with the North Carolina Republican Party platform that supports eliminating the U.S. Department of Education in favor of direct grants to the states? I think you have to answer first, and then you can throw your poker chip. Oh, for the last one, okay. Sorry, y'all, I missed that.
Hey, as a grandfather of 5 granddaughters, 4 grandsons, one of the things I was on my priority list when I got elected to the House of Representatives was to go there and protect them from boys being in girls' bathrooms, from boys playing in girls' sports. And we did that. We passed that law, and it's been passed in the state. I don't know what's going on with it now, but we have passed it and it's been enforced. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Oh, yes, of course. Do you agree with North Carolina's Republican Party platform that supports eliminating the U.S. Department of Education in favor of direct grants to the states? Abortion providers, including Planned Parenthood, should not receive taxpayer funds from North Carolina governments. He's played his poker chip.
So in the North Carolina Senate, I have voted to defund Planned Parenthood. So that way your tax dollars are not going to, your tax dollars are not paying for abortions.
I'd like to add to that, in my legislative term, being in the North Carolina House, we passed the most comprehensive Child Protection Act, anti-abortion laws in the state of North Carolina it ever been passed before in the state. We changed the time frame from 20 weeks to 12 weeks, which wasn't what we wanted. We wanted 6. Couldn't get the Senate to go on that, so we negotiated 12 and made a great, huge difference in saving lives. So the number of children that have been saved in North Carolina since we passed that law is tremendous.
Are you in favor of tying teacher pay supplements to student performance metrics? Should the General Assembly require the education lottery to prioritize increasing profits for education rather than increasing ticket sales? Do you support filing a bill to create partisan municipal elections to save Cabarrus County election costs? Do you favor public transit over roads to help congestion? One more time, do you favor public transit over roads to help congestion? Yeah, you sure can.
Can you repeat that question?
Of course. Do you favor public transit over roads to help congestion?
Well, I think there has to be a healthy balance. Public transportation can work very well in metropolitan areas where you have to have public transportation because the infrastructure can't handle all the automobiles. Now, in rural areas, it may not make as much sense. So it's not I'm not going to say that I would support one over the other. It depends on the area and the state in which we need to use the funding.
That would be the last question. Do you want to use your poker chip?
Sure.
We're here for you.
I have to agree with Senator Meisner in that statement. I think it is very situational. There are places where we need more roads, but there's also places where we need public transportation. So I don't think it is an easy yes or no question. I think it's situational in different parts of the county. One of the things we have interesting in Cabarrus County is we go anywhere from the farmland out in the middle of nowhere to cities like Concord and Harrisburg. So I think what works in Harrisburg may not work in Reimertown. So I think it's something we have to address that way.
All right, round 2. Mr. Crutchfield, the Cabarrus community has seen an alarming rise in high-profile incidents involving teens and gun violence. Your campaign has said public safety comes first. What exactly do you propose as a solution to our growing youth crime in Cabarrus?
That is a good question. One of the things I'd have to work with the Sheriff's Department on what they see and what their experiences have been in the field. I think sometimes when legislators want to sit back and try to mandate what the counties and cities should do to fix these kind of crime problems, we get policies with unintended consequences. So I think in my situation, to address that problem, I'd want to sit down with Van Shaw and say, hey, what are the issues and what can we do legislatively to help you with those problems that you're having?
Thank you.
So in my time in the North Carolina Senate, as I had mentioned in my opening, I voted for Arenas Law, which ends the cashless bail system for repeat and violent offenders in the state of North Carolina. These individuals will stay incarcerated until their court date. This is making our community safer all across the state. As far as juvenile crime, I've met with our district attorney, I've met with our sheriff, I've met with a police chief of Concord and the police chief of Kannapolis, and we've had comprehensive discussions about how we can reform juvenile justice. I mean, we have a serious problem with crime committed by underage individuals, and we have to be tougher on this. The safety and security of a community is foundational.
Then it cuts into your, if you take the time to respond now, we'll cut into your response time for the next question. But you can respond, nobody's telling you you can't.
I think there's one thing to consider that I hadn't really, it's probably not very foremost in most people's mind, but a lot of this juvenile crime is driven by older adults that are forcing them into it. We actually have trafficking going on with teenagers that are being forced into doing these juvenile crimes. And I think part of the reason we have to address it from a trafficking standpoint because we have to get the people that are pushing forward the trafficking that's going on. If we don't address that, we're not going to stop juvenile crime.
Mr. Meismer, staying on the issue of violence, our region's schools have seen an alarming rate of attacks on schools, teachers, and staff. What is necessary to protect our county's teachers and students while at school?
It's absolutely an issue that I hear about. I hear from our teachers, I've heard from administration. We have a discipline issue. And the problem is that it starts at home. I mean, we have families, we have parents who are not holding their kids accountable or teaching their kids right from wrong. And, I've heard it time and time again where whenever there's a discipline issue, the parents will be contacted and the parents don't care, or they say, don't bother me. I'm at work or doing something else, and they feel like it's the school's problem. The school should not be raising our kids. It comes from the home. And so we have to foundationally work on that. But I think that our school administration and the school teachers should be supported, should be absolutely supported in trying to curb the violence in our schools.
I think the idea that we can somehow look into the houses and fix the problems at home is a little bit naive. I think it'd be great if we could. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think the teachers have to be protected. And one of the ideas that I have is somehow where we could create a system within the schools where when a student becomes a disciplinary problem, the teacher himself is not required to deal with that. There's another team that comes in, pulls that student from the classroom, and they deal with that disciplinary action separate from the classroom. That way it allows the students to remain in the classroom to continue with their educational process and learn. We can't expect teachers to teach and be disciplinary. We've got to pull that out of the classrooms to protect the teachers and the other students.
Mr. Crutchfield, we are going to change the topic. The Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, and now the decision on abortion sits with state legislators. Most neighboring states have very restrictive or total bans on abortion, while our friends in Virginia, it's the most accessible state for abortion in the Southeast. Did you get it right when you voted for the Care of Women, Children and Families Act in 2023 that set North Carolina's abortion limits at 12 weeks?
Well, I think anything you can do to move the needle on abortions is a good thing. It's not perfect. I went up there with the idea to get a heartbeat bill. Now, I've learned a lot since then, and it's interesting, North Carolina has become a destination state because states that have heartbeat bills, women are coming here to get that done. So it's a problem within the state. The other side of it is, and something I hadn't considered when we passed the 12-week bill, was that I've talked to folks that work in clinics in other states with the heartbeat bill. And they said, listen, we actually believe that the heartbeat bill is causing more abortions than the 12-week bill. And I'm like, well, how is that? They said, when a woman comes to us with a pregnancy issue and it's a heartbeat bill, she is forced into making an immediate decision about what to do with that child. But when we have 6 weeks of which we can work with that young lady and let her know what her options are, we have a lot better outcome in the results of that. So I'm not sure. As much as I would believe that a heartbeat bill would be better, I'm not sure that it's actually saving more lives, and I think it's something we need to do more study on.
Well, I'm certainly pro-life, and we have 2 great pregnancy centers here in Cabarrus County, and I've been to both and have toured both, and they truly help women in a time of need, in a time of crisis, and I believe in supporting those centers. I believe that the education piece that comes with those centers, whenever these young ladies come into these pregnancy centers, that there's an education piece and they feel supported as well. And so that's a big piece of it, is that they need to feel like, they're supported during this hard time. As I said, I voted to defund Planned Parenthood, and I do not want our taxpayer dollars funding abortions. I believe I would support a heartbeat bill in the North Carolina Senate. I would like to see some more research on that, but I would support that.
Mr. Meismer, North Carolina is currently the only state operating without a budget. What will it take to make sure the state meets its basic responsibility of passing a budget on time?
Absolutely. So North Carolina, the budget process. So the week I was appointed was the week that the Senate budget was unveiled. So it was brought to my office on a Monday night. And it was about this thick in paper, and we voted on it that week. I tried to read every page of that budget. But there's a process. It goes through the Senate, it goes through the House, or each chamber comes up with a budget. It's discussed, debated. Each chamber sends their budget to the other chamber. And I've been advocating with leadership of the House and leadership of the Senate that we get a budget done. We have to get it done. Now, I will tell you that this DAVE Act that we passed that created the Division of Accountability, Value, and Efficiency, there are a lot of reports that are going to be coming out of that's going to help shape this budget that we will pass in the short session. And I think that there's a lot of good information that is coming out of these reports that we'll be able to use to get a better, accurately reflected budget. I feel like I served here on the local county commission board, and we had to have our budget completed by June 30th. And I feel that the state should have the same deadline. I feel that the state legislature should have a deadline, and we should have to stay there as long as it takes to get a budget done. So that's something that I've been advocating for. That's something that I would like to see passed in the General Assembly.
Chris, I don't know what your problem is. We passed the budget when I was there. No, I'm just kidding. It's a very delicate balance between the House and the Senate. It's very difficult. I get that. I was there, sitting in appropriations meetings as a freshman and watching, as they say, the sausage get made. And I wish you could just go in and tap on Senator Berger and Leader Hall and say, guys, get it figured out. But a lot of it comes down to what the corner offices can agree on. A lot of our bills that we put forth are used as poker chips, so to speak, on how to get, we try to get the budget passed, and they'll say, look, if you don't pass the budget, then you're not going to get these bills through the Senate Rules Committee or the House Rules Committee. So it's a very complicated process. But I will say that while I was there, we actually passed the budget.
I'd like to respond. So we've heard my opponent say, and we've read the campaign literature that he brought back well over $100 million to the district. 185, okay. So I want to let you know that during those budget processes, during that budget time, there were a lot of COVID funds that were flowing down from the federal government. And that's how this money was secured for the district. We're working in a whole different set of rules right now with our budget process. There's not near as much money going around, and we're trying to look for the best way, the best value for the tax dollars, for the taxpayer.
You can play cards all night long, but I don't know if that's going to work on this one. So, but the next question is for you. So, Mr. Crutchfield, you voted in favor of Senate Bill 382, which combined disaster relief funding with major shifts of power away from the governor-elect Stein, while overhauling how the state conducts elections. The bill was introduced and passed by both chambers in less than 24 hours. Should bills in the General Assembly seek more public input before votes are taken?
Following up from the last question real quick, and then I'll get to that. It is true there was COVID money, they call it ARPA money, and that money was used for things like the trucking school at Rowan Cabarrus College. But the majority of those funds were excess state taxations. The majority of this was not COVID funds. A lot of the COVID funds were used for some specific projects, but to think that the $185 million was all COVID money would be a mistake. Now, back to your question. Let's see, what did you say again?
You voted in favor of Senate Bill 382, which combined the disaster relief funding with the major shifts away from Stein.
Right.
The bill was introduced and passed in both the chambers within 24 hours. Do you believe that we should look for public input before passing something that quickly?
I think public input is always valuable. I can't go back and tell you exactly why we did it so quickly, but I do think that anytime you can get public input into a decision you have to make is important. A lot of times if we don't make decisions with that public input, what's going to happen is we're going to have unintended consequences. So my support would be for that in general. For that particular case, I'm not sure why we didn't seek more public input, but sometimes the wheels have to move fast.
So House Bill 382, whenever you were serving in the House during that time, this was a bill that had hurricane relief funds, over $200 million for the hurricane relief in Western North Carolina. And this is a bill that you held up from a veto override from the governor because you were wanting to seek a job with Josh Stein. Well, it's well documented in the news, allegedly. So you were holding up COVID relief for Western Carolina, and it passed quickly, and there was a lot of phone calls that were made because you were the Republican holding up that veto override to get a job with Josh Stein.
Only those who don't really know what happened come up with conclusions like that. The fact of the matter is, I never held up the veto. I voted for the bill. And the fact that I'm not sitting in the Secretary of Commerce position today makes you understand that I didn't sell out the vote to get that job. Now, what you should also realize is applying for that job. Can anybody in this room tell me why you think it would be better to have a Democrat sitting as a Secretary of Commerce than a Republican? Anybody here would prefer a Democrat in that position? I applied for that job to put a Republican voice in a very valuable position in the state of North Carolina, and I would do it again.
Mr. Measer, you have consistently voted against taxpayer incentives over your 2 terms as county commissioner. Now that you're in the state, what is your position on incentives, and specifically, do you support efforts like House Bill 283, now in the Senate, that hopes to create direct grants to small research-driven businesses by expanding the One North Carolina Fund?
So I will tell you, I have consistently voted against tax incentives in Cabarrus County because our property tax rate has consistently increased over the years. So as more of these tax incentives were given out to outsiders, not from people within our community, given to outsiders for people to move in, it put gasoline on the growth that we have in Cabarrus County. Now, we want some growth. We want jobs in our community. We have to have that. However, whenever our property tax rate consistently increases, we should not be given tax breaks. Now, there is some criticism about a tax incentive that I had voted on in the North Carolina Senate. However, that was part of a bill that secured the fund for our second DMV location, and also was additional funds for hurricane relief. So many times there are things grouped into a bill that we may not agree with, but I sure wanted that second DMV location for our district. And there's tough decisions that have to be made.
I don't know, I do know that I was told that Mr. Pittman had said that if he ever voted for a tax incentive that he would quit, and he's still here, so I don't know what that means.
That was when he was still on the county.
But he voted for a tax incentive. You're not on the stage, so I was just pointing out that you were supposed to be quitting.
Well, you're lying.
I'm
Okay,
not lying. You
hey,
said
hold on,
I didn't say that.
I've got this microphone. Guys,
I didn't say that. You're the one that said it. I didn't. But anyway, back to the incentive question. Excuse me. You're not in the House. You're not in the Senate. Just be quiet. Mr. Meismer did in fact vote for those tax incentives. Okay. Now, I understand that sometimes it's a difficult decision, but somebody who called tax incentives liberal in a county commissioner meeting has now become a liberal and passed tax incentive.
Mr. Crutchfield, North Carolina brought in roughly $1 million in sports betting revenue in 2025 after your vote on House Bill 347. A statewide report also confirmed an overall 79% increase to calls into the gambling helpline. Do you have any regrets about your vote?
I do not, because simply sports betting was happening in North Carolina regardless of whether we were benefiting it as taxpayers. It was happening illegally and under the table. So what we did is we legalized it. We legalized it and made it more traceable, more trackable. In that bill for sports betting, we also put substantial amount of money in there and programs in there for folks related to sports betting issues. What's the word I'm looking for? Habits. So I don't regret that at all. I think that at the end, that sports betting has far exceeded the expectations of what we even expected when we passed it. And I think in the end, North Carolina is going to benefit.
So in the North Carolina Senate budget that I voted on, we increased the tax for the sports betting 100% because the revenue was not there that was promised. And so we put a full tax on it. Now, whether or not that will get through the House or not, we'll find out. But I want people to know too that there's outside interest that is spending close to $1 million in this primary against me. $750,000 is being spent by an outside group who is rewarding my opponent for votes.
Again, those are false conclusions. No one knows who's spending the money. No one knows who they're spending. I mean, they know who's spending on, but no one knows. It's a conclusion that somehow that's going to swap for votes is a misnomer. I can tell you this: when I sit across the desk from lobbyists, what I look at them is I say, "Look, I've looked at my voter list. You're not on it. My job here is to represent the people of my district, and that's what I'll do." Now, I don't have a political career ahead of me. I'm just trying to do some good things while here at the end of my career in life, so to speak. So the decisions I make up there are not based on who spends money on me, it's based on what's best for you.
Mr. Meismer, today, about 23% of Cabarrus County's school-aged children do not attend Cabarrus County schools. You and your opponent have both expressed support for expanding charter schools and opportunity scholarships to give families more educational options. How do you respond to voters who worry that expanding school choice harms our local public schools, which are already facing financial strain and overcrowding?
Well, I think there's room for public education, room for private education, and for school choice. I think that it's good to have a variety of options for our citizens and for families to choose. I believe in supporting our public education. On the Cabarrus County Commission Board, I voted many times to support our public education. I've also voted in the Senate to expand the opportunity scholarships. I think that is vitally important for there to be an option. I've also voted in the North Carolina Senate to expand the scholarship funds that come from, this was allowed through the big beautiful bill that was passed federally, that if a state opts in, that you can make tax deductible contributions to a scholarship fund that will sponsor kids to be able to have more choices in education. And I support all choices. I feel like you, as a family, as a citizen, should have a choice in education.
I have to agree. I think that school choice is a valuable tool. I think that parents in the education system have to look at each individual student and decide what's best for them. I supported opportunity scholarships when I was in the House. I support them now. I do understand there's some concern public school-wise, but I also think we need to look at ways that we can balance what happens in public school versus what happens in charter school. I know that Rowan County right now operates as a charter school in a pilot program. I think we need to look at how that's working out and see how we can roll some of that into Cabarrus County. But I do think that it's necessary to have options in education, and I support that.
Mr. Crutchfield, you traveled to add public comment at a local government commission meeting in Raleigh to push back on the LGC's scrutiny of Cabarrus County's purchase of the ACN building and land. Why did you attend the meeting, and do you think the county made a wise investment when voting to move forward with the purchase?
I was at the meeting and I attended the meeting. I did not speak at the meeting, but I was there on behalf of my constituents in Cabarrus County. I was there to represent their interest. The decision to buy the ACM building was something that was done by the commission, not done by the state. But once the decision was made and you look at it and you evaluate it, look, I'm a business guy. I look at what's it cost me to get into a product, what's to a particular position, and what's my return on that investment. So I'm looking at all the time, I'm looking at what does it cost versus what I'm going to gain from it. The ACN building, while it was overpriced, if you look around the county, it was the only building in the county that would fit the bill. Now, whether you agree with it or not, it fit the bill, and it was the lowest cost to the taxpayers to do that. Now, a lot of people want to argue that, but that's the facts. So yes, I was there in support of our county and what was important to us.
So I was on the county commission board whenever this decision to purchase the ACN building was made. I voted against it. I didn't feel that it was the best decision to use your tax dollars to pay double the appraised value for a building. Now, I understand that the Department of Social Services needed a new space. There is no disputing that. What the dispute is that the ACN building was purchased for twice the appraised value. There was not negotiations. What kind of business deal is that? That's the worst deal for the taxpayer that can be made. And I attended these LGC meetings, and in August, the commission had an issue with the appraisal. The county was not being honest in the appraisal that they gave to the LGC. And it was found out that the county was misrepresenting the appraisal on that building. And then somehow politically, behind the scenes, some individuals got involved, and the LGC then approved the purchase of the building. I voted to defend your tax dollars on that county.
I don't think it was really done politically. If you were in the LGC meetings, what you looked at is the board that supports the LGC reviewed the information that was presented to them, and the board decided to go against the treasurer at the time and approve the LGC recommendations for this funding. What was the appraisal? I know that appraisal I wasn't involved in it as much as Chris was because he was a county commissioner at the time, but they were provided the appraisal. It wasn't misrepresented. That's just a misnomer. And at the end of the day, they did exactly what they needed to do.
Mr. Meismer, your campaign has drawn attention to the foreign ownership of farmland by foreign governments. What is your proposal to preserve farmland in Cabarrus County, and how can we afford to accomplish it?
Well, as your Cabarrus County Commissioner, I voted numerous of times to preserve farmland and forestry in Cabarrus County. We have to have a balance from our growth, and I was proud to support those measures whenever I was on the Cabarrus County Commission Board. Now, in the North Carolina Senate, we have there have been a number of proposals about banning foreign entities from owning farmland in North Carolina, and I wholeheartedly support that. I do not feel that we should have foreign entities buying up farmland in North Carolina or owning. We must protect our farms. It's a safety and security issue.
I agree with Chris, and that's why when I was in the House, we passed a bill through the House to protect farmland from investments from foreign entities. It didn't make it through the Senate, but it did make it through the House. So we definitely supported that together. Good job.
Mr. Crutchfield, close to where you live, local fire departments have seen an increase in fires at Duke Energy solar farms installed to meet the Utilities Commission's carbon reduction targets by 2030. Do you agree with the carbon reduction goals, and what can be done to reduce the wildfire risk in the southern parts of the county?
I live across the street from a 750-acre solar farm. Now, while that's not great, and I understand that there's this fire risk, I also realize that if there wasn't a 750-acre solar farm, it would be a 2,000-house development. So I definitely support the solar farm from that standpoint, the use of property. The problem with solar farms is they're just not efficient. They're just a large use of land. One of the things you see also that happens, and then when they put these in, is you see much more degradation of the soil composition from the property around it, because water flows at a much greater rate than it did when it was just a forest. So I think there's an issue with solar farms. I'm not sure what the answer is to fix it, but I know that we need to address it.
So the solar farms become an eyesore. They're also not as efficient. And then once the panels reach their certain age, they're very expensive to replace. And I know it's happened to other places around the country where they're abandoned. And that's a serious problem that we have. In the North Carolina Senate, I have voted to reduce and to get rid of the Green New Deal mandates that we have. This is something that is completely unnecessary. Of course, I believe in the environment. I want to protect our environment. However, we cannot go along with the Green New Deal.
Mr. Musemer, you've emphasized the need for stronger oversight, accountability, and reduced regulatory burdens. What specific areas of government would you draft legislation to reform, and why?
So in my time in the Senate, we voted on the REINS Act, which has actually become law. And what the REINS Act does is it prohibits unelected bureaucrats from imposing new rules and regulations that have an impact over $1 million. And that can be for businesses or for local governments. And so this is, so I sit on the Regulatory Reform Committee who spearheaded the effort to get this through. I'm very proud of that legislation. I feel that it was crucial and important for our economy, for the jobs, and to make things more affordable for you.
I think the REINS Act was good. I don't think it went far enough. I'm a small business owner. I don't get to $1 million. $1 million isn't in my budget of what I'm concerned with. But what I'm concerned about is $20,000. I think the REINS Act needs to be advanced a little bit more to help protect small businesses like me. I'll give you an example. Just recently, because of the amount of sales tax money that we collect in our business and pay to the state of North Carolina, they've decided that I have to reach in my bank account and take out what's 65% of what's due the next month that I haven't even collected yet. They want me to take my money out of my bank account and pay it to the state of North Carolina. I absolutely disagree with that, and I will be working to get that changed.
So there was a little bit of a misstatement there. The $1 million impact is not per business. The $1 million impact is for impact across the industry for statewide. So that's a small threshold whenever you're talking about regulation affecting the entire state. Now, I agree that I think that there's more work that we can do, And there's a lot more regulations that we can certainly take a look at. And that's what the Regulatory Reform Committee that was just created in the Senate last session, I'm proud to sit on that. And that is absolutely what we're doing, is looking through regulations. But the $1 million impact with the REINS Act is for industry-wide.
Mr. Crutchfield, the Republican Party platform stresses electing leaders who uphold Republican values, supporting candidates who advance conservative policy, and strengthening the Republican Party at every level. What have you done in the last year to support fellow Republicans?
Well, about the last year, but 2 years ago, I gave one of our representatives $20,000 for his campaign, so I think I've done quite a bit to support Republicans. I have always been a conservative, and I think everything I do is related to that. I just recently donated $5,000 to the Republican Party related to for their caucus, for them to use in hard-fought races. So I'm actually gave them money to use against me in this election. So I don't know that there's any issues of me ever not supporting Republicans, but if someone can find one, I'd certainly like to see it.
So I've been a Republican all of my life. I've been a Republican since the day I could register to vote. I have been attending the local Republican Party meetings since I was in high school. As a Republican, to me, it means limited government, less taxes, freedoms and liberties for each and every one of you, free from government control. These are my principles, and these are my beliefs, and this is how I govern.
Mr. Meismer, affordability is very important to families. What is your position on raising the minimum wage to help cover the rising costs to live here?
Well, the minimum wage has not been increased in a number of years. I've been involved in a business group, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, the NFIB. I served as vice chair of that statewide board that deal with business issues. And I'll tell you this, the increase in the minimum wage would affect local high school students, young individuals that, potentially that are working a part-time job. I think that there needs to be, there has to be choice and freedom. So as, a business offers more, you see Chick-fil-A that will start out at $16 an hour. You have a lot of individuals that will go there and work because they're offering more. There has to be some competition there. Affordability is a big issue. And it's on everybody's mind here in North Carolina. I voted for the SCRIPT Act, which is price transparency for prescription drugs here in North Carolina. I've voted against property tax increases. So I've worked on affordability issues, but certainly minimum wage is something that needs to be dictated by the market.
I don't have anyone that works at my company that makes minimum wage. I don't know of anybody at McDonald's that makes minimum wage, so I'm not sure where minimum wage is being applied, but in the marketplace we're in today, minimum wage is almost non-existent from my experience. The market's going to dictate what the wages could be. The bottom line is, in order for me to raise wages, I have to charge you more money for the products and services that I supply, and until you're willing to do that, then I'm going to be limited on what I can pay the employees that work for me. It's a cost versus profitability. Everybody thinks that a business owner has a deep pocket and there's no bottom in it, but there is a bottom in it, just like there is in the state's pocket. We only have a limited amount of money that we can put forth payroll. It's very important, and we're always working as business owners to pay our employees as much as we can so that they have a livable wage, because those things that happen, that hit the dinner table at home are critical to North Carolinians, and we've got to work to raise that. Thank you.
Well, we've made it to the end. Closing remarks. Since we started with Mr. Crutchfield, we'll start with Mr. Meismer.
I appreciate each and every one of you being here this evening. I know that this takes time out of your day, your evening. You could be doing a lot of other things, but I really appreciate you being here. But it's very important. It's very important to know who you're going to vote for, who you're supporting. But I want you to know that whether I've been in the local level or at the state level, I'm doing this for you because I care about you. I care about your family. I care about the future of Cabarrus County. I care about the future of North Carolina. I don't do this for a title or for recognition. I've never once sold you out or tried to attempt to sell you out. I don't do this because I want to be in Raleigh. I do this because I care for you. I care for Cabarrus County, where I was born and raised. This is my home, this is my community, and I want to represent you and your beliefs in Raleigh.
So I believe what this is, as a business owner, one of the things you do is you look at resumes. And when you go to hire people, you say, hey, what has this person done in the past that demonstrates to me they can do what I need them to do in the future? And I think clearly if you look at my resume, without a doubt, you know what I can do based on what I've done in the past. So with this job interview, what I would tell you to do is look at the resume. You don't go into a doctor's office and pick the guy who has no experience. You pick the guy who's got the most experience, who has the best opportunity to cure your situation. That's who I am in this race. Now, you might disagree with that. I may not be your friend, but the bottom line is I have the cure to go to Raleigh and the ability to protect you from what's happening at the state level. I'm going to bring back what I can to you, and I'm going to fight for battles with your situations of what you need me to help you deal with. And that's what I do. The constituents, the amount of people that contacted my office when I was there as a House representative that we helped was substantial. From the minor things of getting something into the DMV office, the one that's not yet built yet, but from the whole idea of helping you on a constituent level with things that you have problems with within our state. We can do that. That's what we did when I was there, and that's what we'll do when we're there again. My record in Raleigh is clear. I am qualified. I am the most qualified to go up there and represent you and do the work that you need me to do. I'd appreciate your support.